I grew up watching my brothers get married without me, then found out they erased me from my dad's will. But on my wedding day, I finally got the justice they never thought I'd fight for. I was 11 years old when my stepmother looked me straight in the eye and said, "Sweetheart, this isn't your place. This is our family's day." That was the first time I realized I wasn't really part of the family. My name's Kaylin, and I'm the only child from my dad's second marriage. He had 3 sons, Landon, Drew, and Cole, from his first wife, who passed away when they were young. A few years after her death, he married my mom, and then I came along. At least, that's how they like to tell it. Like I was some sweet little afterthought that completed the picture. But the truth? I never felt like anything but an outsider. Not just because of the age gap, I was born nearly 15 years after the youngest of my brothers, but because of the way my stepmother and her sons treated me. They never said it directly, not at first, but it was in the way they introduced me as Kaylin, my dad's daughter, instead of my sister. In the way my stepmother always had 2 versions of family photos, one with her boys on the mantle, and another version, without me, shared on Facebook. In the way she referred to me in third person when I was right there in the room. Still, I tried to be part of things. I was just a kid. I didn't understand why they kept me at arm's length. I loved my brothers. I wanted them to like me. So when Landon got engaged, I was over the moon. Even though I was only 11, I begged my mom to let me help with the planning. I'd sneak into her room and look at wedding magazines, daydreaming about being a junior bridesmaid. I asked if I could wear a light blue dress like the rest of the bridal party. I even practiced walking slowly down the hallway holding a fake bouquet. I thought maybe this was my chance. Maybe if I showed them how excited I was, they'd finally see me as family. Then one day, I came home from school and saw my mom sitting at the kitchen table. Her face looked stiff, almost guilty. I knew something was wrong before she said a word. She waited until I sat down, then said, "Kaylin, there's something I need to tell you. Landon and Paige decided to have a small wedding. It's going to be just for adults." I blinked. "Okay, but I'm not a baby. I'm his sister." She hesitated. "I know, sweetie, but they really want it to be intimate. No kids." I remember my stomach sinking so fast it felt like the floor disappeared. "But I can be quiet. I won't mess anything up. I just want to be there." She gave me a tired smile. "It's not about you. Don't take it personally." But how could I not take it personally? He was my brother, and I wasn't invited to his wedding. That night, while the rest of the family went out shopping for suits and dresses, I stayed home with my mom. I tried not to cry. I really did. But when I saw a text from Drew in the family group chat, "Just picked up the tux. Can't wait for the big day." I locked myself in the bathroom and sobbed quietly for hours. No one even asked if I was okay. After the wedding, no one talked about it around me. No stories, no photos, no jokes. Like it hadn't happened. Or worse, like I hadn't happened. Like I wasn't even part of the same world. 2 years later, Drew got engaged. I was 13 by then. A little older. A little more guarded. I didn't say anything when the adults-only announcement came. I just nodded politely and went back to my room. But something in me cracked the day I saw a picture on Instagram of my cousin Danny, who was 12 at the time, posing with the bridal party at Drew's wedding. She'd been invited. She got to go. I didn't. When I asked my mom about it, she looked uncomfortable. "That's different, Kaylin. Danny's been really close with Paige's family for years. So she's not even related to us," I said, my voice shaking. "But she gets to be there? And I don't?" "You're overreacting," my stepmother chimed in from the other room. "It's just a wedding." That was the moment I realized it was never about kids. It was about me. I was the problem. I was the one they didn't want in the pictures. After that, I stopped trying. I withdrew. I'd come home from school, go straight to my room, and drown myself in homework, books, or anything that didn't involve family dinners or group chats. But then came Cole, the youngest of the 3. The one who, up until then, had at least acknowledged me with the occasional, "Hey," or "What's up?" When he got engaged, I didn't even flinch. I already knew I wasn't going to be invited. I was 16, practically an adult. I'd grown into someone quiet, smart, respectful. Everything my stepmother claimed she wanted from a daughter. But it didn't matter. The announcement came during Thanksgiving dinner. Cole clinked his glass and said, "So, big news. Haley and I have set the date. It'll be a cozy little wedding, just close family and friends. No kids, of course." Everyone cheered. I didn't say a word. What stung the most? My cousin Parker, who was 17, got an invite. They even mentioned it like it was a joke. "Guess we're letting Parker in under the wire." Cole laughed. I was older than Parker by 2 months. That night, while everyone watched football in the living room, I sat alone on the porch, clutching a mug of hot cider that had long gone cold. I wasn't even mad anymore. I was just hollow. I remember thinking, if this is family, then I don't want any part of it. But even in that moment, I didn't know how far they'd go to erase me. Because what they did next wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. They lied to my extended family. They told them I'd chosen not to attend, that I'd been too busy with school to make time for Cole's wedding. And then they posted a family photo online with the caption, "All the siblings back together." I wasn't in it, because I was never supposed to be. And that's when I decided the next wedding in this family would be mine. And they wouldn't even know it was happening. After seeing that photo, something in me just snapped. It wasn't even the picture itself. It was the caption. All the siblings back together. As if I'd never existed. As if I hadn't sat at the same kitchen table, eaten the same holiday meals, or spent years trying to be good enough to earn a spot beside them. I stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the comment button. Every cell in my body wanted to scream. You left me out on purpose. Stop pretending I was ever included. But I didn't type anything. I just closed the app, locked my phone, and laid on my bed in silence. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. Not the soft, quiet tears I'd learned to hide. I mean full-on sobbing, the kind that racks your body and makes your chest hurt. I cried until my throat was raw and my pillow was soaked, and even then I couldn't stop. Because it hit me. They didn't forget me. They chose to forget me. And somehow, that hurt more. The next morning, I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't speak to anyone. I walked past my stepmother in the hallway and she said, "Rough night?" Like she didn't already know. Like she hadn't been the one pulling the strings all along. I didn't answer her. I just kept walking. I think that was the moment she realized something had shifted in me. That I wasn't the same desperate for love little girl anymore. Weeks passed. I stopped going to family events. I stopped answering calls from cousins. My mom tried to get me to reconnect, but I ignored her too. I started saving money from my part-time job. I buried myself in schoolwork. Anything to build my own world, separate from theirs. Then I met Elias. We were in the same economics class in college. He sat next to me one day and made a dumb joke about our professor's obsession with pie charts. I smiled, probably for the first time in weeks. Elias was different. He didn't just ask about my favorite color or what music I liked. He asked why I flinched every time someone brought up family. He noticed the way my jaw tightened when people talked about holidays. And for the first time in my life, I told someone the truth. I told him about Landon's wedding. How I stood at the top of the stairs in a blue dress, only to be told I wasn't needed. I told him about Drew, about the lie they told the family when they left me out. I told him about Cole, the Instagram post, and how my name had been left out of the invitation list on purpose. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't tell me to let it go. He just listened. And then he said something I'll never forget. You don't need to keep proving your worth to people who made up their minds about you before you even had a chance. That was the moment the healing started. Elias and I grew close. Closer than I'd been with anyone in years. We moved in together after graduation, adopted a rescue dog named Beans, and started building a quiet, joyful little life. A life where I was wanted. Seen. But just when I thought I'd moved on, the universe decided to test me. It happened the week Elias proposed. We'd been together for 3 years. It wasn't a surprise. We'd talked about marriage, even picked out a ring together. But when he got down on one knee in our tiny living room, holding a bouquet of wildflowers from the farmer's market, I still cried. I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. And I wanted to share that moment with someone. Anyone. So, against my better judgment, I called my mom. At first, she sounded excited. "Kaylin! Oh, honey, congratulations. He finally did it, huh?" I smiled. "Yeah, he did." There was a pause. Then, "So when's the big day?" "We're thinking late spring. Nothing big, just something small and meaningful. Backyard, string lights, close friends. Of course, and you'll let me help you plan. We can call the boys. Landon's always good with music, and Drew has that contact for caterers." My stomach dropped. I didn't say anything right away. "Kaylin?" she asked, her voice suddenly sharper. "You are inviting your brothers, right?" I swallowed hard. "Number I'm not." Silence. And then, "Excuse me?" "I'm not inviting them," I said again, this time with more strength. "They weren't there for any of my milestones. I don't want them there now." Her voice turned cold. "You're making a mistake. They're your family." No, I said, my hands trembling. They're strangers who shared a house with me once. She gasped like I'd slapped her. Do you have any idea what people will say? What kind of bride doesn't invite her own brothers? I laughed bitterly. The kind who wasn't invited to their weddings. She hung up on me. Of course she did. The fallout started the next day. Landon texted me. Heard you're getting married. Congrats. Sorry we didn't get the invite. Must have been a mistake. Drew followed up. You're really not inviting family? What the hell, Kaylin? I ignored them. I wasn't playing their game anymore. But then, Cole showed up. Not a text. Not a call. He showed up at our apartment. Elias and I were eating dinner when someone knocked. I opened the door and there he was. Same smug expression, same condescending tone. I just came to talk, he said. Mom's freaking out. She says you've gone off the deep end. I crossed my arms. I'm not interested in your opinion. He smirked. Look, whatever grudge you're holding, let it go. You're being dramatic. You chose not to come to our weddings. Don't act like the victim now. My jaw dropped. You lied, I said, my voice shaking. You told people I didn't want to come? He shrugged. It sounded better than telling them you weren't invited. We were trying to protect you. Protect me, like I was some family secret they had to cover up. Elias stepped forward then, placing a firm hand on my back. You need to leave. But before Cole walked out, he said one last thing. Oh, and just so you know, Dad left the house to all of us in the will. If you keep pulling this crap, don't expect to see a dime. And just like that, the wedding became the second biggest battle of my life. Because now they weren't just trying to erase me emotionally, they were trying to erase me financially too. I didn't sleep that night. After Cole left, I sat at the kitchen table for hours, staring at the wall while Elias tried to talk me down. But my brain wouldn't shut off. His words kept circling in my head like poison. Don't expect to see a dime. I'd known my family was cold, selfish, manipulative, but this was another level. They weren't just trying to make me feel small anymore. Now they were threatening my future. Let me be clear. This wasn't about the money. I wasn't banking on some magical inheritance. But the house, the one I'd grown up in, even if I was treated like a ghost inside it, that house was supposed to be mine too. Not because I needed it, because it was the last thing tying me to the father I lost. My dad died when I was 19, right after I started college. It was sudden. An aneurysm, no warning. One day we were talking about course schedules and books. The next I was identifying his body in a hospital room. And after the funeral, when I came home to grieve, my stepmother barely let me in the front door. She told me, your brothers are handling everything. We'll let you know if you need to sign anything. I was so deep in grief I didn't argue. I didn't question it. I didn't even ask to see the will. But now I realized I should have, because something didn't feel right. And this time, I wasn't going to be quiet. The next morning, I called a law office 3 blocks from our apartment. I'd never spoken to a lawyer before. My voice was shaking when I explained the situation, but the assistant transferred me right away to a woman named Marlene. She was sharp, calm, and had zero patience for family politics. When I told her I didn't know what was in the will, only what they had told me, she paused. You're listed as his biological daughter, correct? Yes, I'm on the birth certificate. Then unless your father explicitly removed you from the will, which is rare and legally complicated, you're entitled to a share of any estate assets, including property. My heart pounded. What if they told everyone I didn't want anything? I asked. What if they handled it all without me? She was quiet for a beat, then said, Kaylin, that would be illegal. And just like that, everything cracked open. Elias stood behind me the entire call, his hand on my shoulder. When I hung up, he said, You're doing the right thing. They've taken enough. I nodded. But I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was furious. For years, I'd swallowed their cruelty. Let them twist the truth. Let them shrink me down to someone they could ignore. I thought if I was quiet enough, kind enough, maybe they'd let me stay. But now I knew the truth. They never wanted me there at all. That week, I gave Marlene everything. Emails, texts, old photos, a copy of my birth certificate. And when she requested a copy of the will from the county records office, I thought I was ready for whatever it said. I wasn't. Because 3 days later, I got a call. Marlene's voice was clipped, angry. Kaylin, she said, I have the will. I braced myself. Your father did include you. In fact, he left specific instructions. My stomach flipped. He divided the house equally between you and your 3 brothers, and he left you his entire personal savings account. I sat down slowly. Then why? I whispered. Did they say I wasn't included? She sighed. Because they filed a petition to execute a modified version of the will 6 months after his death. A version that removed your name. My heart stopped. They filed it without notifying you, which is illegal. And if we can prove they did it knowingly, that's fraud. I couldn't breathe. They didn't just forget me. They erased me. On purpose. With paperwork. Elias sat down across from me as I repeated Marlene's words out loud, my hands shaking. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he stood up, walked to the counter, and calmly poured both of us a glass of water. His hands were steadier than mine. I always knew they were awful, he said quietly. But this is another level. I nodded, numb. They forged a version of the will. They cut me out. And now, he said, we make sure they regret it. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I let them keep talking. Let Rachel post her fake little updates on Facebook. Let Landon send his passive-aggressive texts. Let Cole pretend we were just having a misunderstanding. They had no idea I had a lawyer. No idea what was coming. And then, a week before my wedding, it happened. I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name, printed in neat block letters. I opened it, and my blood went cold. Inside was a printed screenshot of a private email I'd sent Marlene, highlighted in yellow, with a sticky note on top that said, if you go through with this, you'll regret it. Drop it now. No name. No signature. Just a threat. I sat on the couch, the paper trembling in my hands. Who sent it? How did they get it? Only one answer made sense. One of my brothers, or my stepmother, hacked my email. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a war. When I got that envelope, I didn't panic. Not this time. I held the threat in my hands, my private email printed and highlighted, and felt something rise inside me that I hadn't felt in years. Power. Because whoever sent this thought, I'd back down. They thought a vague warning, scribbled on a yellow sticky note, would undo everything I'd built. But I wasn't that scared little girl standing outside a church in a blue dress anymore. I was done begging to be seen. I took the envelope straight to Marlene's office. She didn't say a word at first. Just looked at the note, her expression hardening. This, she said, tapping her manicured nail against the paper, is the dumbest thing they could have done. Is it enough to take legal action? Her lips curled into a small, cold smile. Oh, Kaylin, it's better than enough. It's intimidation tied directly to an active estate fraud case, which means now we escalate. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled. We didn't wait. Marlene filed a motion to challenge the modified will and formally accuse the petitioners, my stepmother and brothers, of concealing a beneficiary and attempting to defraud the estate. She attached the threatening note as supporting evidence. I also gave her screenshots of every message they'd ever sent trying to manipulate me, especially the one where Cole warned me about the inheritance. It was airtight. But we didn't stop there. Marlene also requested that the court freeze any financial activity related to the house until the matter was resolved. No refinancing, no selling, no transferring ownership. Everything would be locked down. If they thought they could bully me into silence, they were about to learn exactly who they were dealing with. I didn't tell anyone what was happening. I didn't need to. Because the court did it for me. 3 days later, Landon texted me. What the hell, Kaylin? Why is there a legal hold on Dad's house? Then Drew, you're seriously going to do this? Right before your wedding? I didn't reply. The silence drove them crazy. By the end of the week, my stepmother left me a voicemail, her voice trembling with rage. You selfish little brat. After everything we did for you, this is how you repay us? Digging up the past? Harassing your family with lawyers? You think this makes you powerful? You're pathetic. You'll always be pathetic. Click. I saved it. Marlene added it to the file. The more they reacted, the more they exposed themselves. And I stayed calm, composed, focused. But what none of them realized was I had one more card to play. Because while they were busy trying to cover their tracks and scream about family loyalty, I was digging through my dad's old records. Elias and I spent an entire weekend combing through a plastic storage bin I'd taken from the attic years ago. Most of it was junk. Bills, receipts, birthday cards from a decade ago. But buried at the bottom was a sealed envelope marked in my dad's handwriting. Kaylin, for when you're older. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter, just 2 pages long. It started like any dad's letter would. How proud he was of me, how much he loved me, how he wished he could be there for everything. But then came the part that made my blood run cold. He wrote, "I know things have been hard. I know your stepmother doesn't treat you like her own. And I've seen how the boys look at you, like you're something they have to tolerate. I wish I could fix that. I've tried. But if I'm not here someday, I want you to know this. You matter. You are mine. And I've taken steps to make sure you're protected." I read that sentence 10 times. You are mine, and I've taken steps to make sure you're protected. I burst into tears, not from sadness, but from relief. For years, I thought I'd imagined the distance, that maybe I was sensitive, overdramatic, reading too much into things. But my dad knew. He saw it, and he tried to shield me. That letter was everything, and it was admissible. I sent Marlene a scanned copy. She called me an hour later, voice low and intense. "Kaylin, this changes everything." She immediately filed a supplemental affidavit attaching the letter. Not only did it reinforce my legal standing as a beneficiary, it proved my father had acknowledged mistreatment and intended to protect me from it. It established motive. And just like that, we had emotional context to match the legal one. Still, I didn't say a word to my brothers. I let them stew. I focused on my wedding, the one they weren't invited to. And let me tell you, it was perfect. The backyard was strung with fairy lights. Elias looked at me like I was the only person on earth. My closest friends were there, people who had chosen to love me. There was laughter, music, and joy so pure it felt surreal. For once, I didn't feel like the outsider in my own story. But the best part came the next morning. When I checked my email, there was a message from Marlene. Subject line, "Update, urgent." I opened it, bracing for something awful. Instead, I saw just one sentence. Cole's attorney reached out. He wants to settle privately. I blinked, then read it again. They knew they were going to lose. They'd seen the evidence, the note, the letter, the voicemail, and now they were panicking. I forwarded the message to Elias and whispered, "They're folding." He looked up from his coffee and smirked. Good. They should be scared. And just when I thought it couldn't get any better, it did. Later that afternoon, I got a DM on Instagram from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture, no posts, just a single message. "You think you've won? Ask Marlene who's really been paying her." I stared at the screen. What? I sent it to Marlene right away. She called me in minutes. Her voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it. "That message is a bluff, but it confirms something I've suspected." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She exhaled. "Your stepmother tried to hire a private investigator to find dirt on me. She even offered someone a bribe to delay court proceedings. I found out through a colleague last week. I wasn't going to tell you unless it became relevant." I stood there, frozen. "She's trying to rig the legal system?" "She's desperate," Marlene said simply. "And desperation leaves fingerprints." Then she paused. "And Kaylin, we're filing criminal charges." I never thought I'd see my stepmother sit across from a judge, eyes downcast, voice shaking. But there she was. The woman who once told me, "This isn't your place, sweetheart," now being forced to explain why she filed a fraudulent version of my father's will, forged my signature on estate documents, and intimidated a legal beneficiary with threats. And my brothers? They didn't even look at me when they walked in. Cole wore a suit 2 sizes too big, like he was shrinking inside it. Drew had that same smug smirk he always wore, until the judge started reading the list of violations tied to his name. And Landon? He looked like he wanted to disappear. Marlene had warned me it wouldn't be a dramatic courtroom scene. It was a probate case, not a soap opera. But somehow the quiet tension was worse, because every word spoken went on record. Every lie, every omission, every act of cruelty I'd spent my life trying to forget. I testified briefly. Just facts. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I told the court how my father had died, how they'd excluded me from everything, how they'd told people I didn't want to be part of the family. And then I read the letter my dad left me. You could hear a pin drop. Even the judge looked moved. It didn't take long for the decision. The court ruled in my favor. The original will was reinstated. I was granted my full legal share of the estate, including joint ownership of the house. My stepmother and brothers were found in violation of multiple probate laws. They avoided jail, but were each fined thousands in penalties and required to pay all my legal fees. Even better? A formal notice of misconduct was added to my stepmother's financial record. She'd never be allowed to manage an estate again. The judge ended the session with one simple sentence I'll never forget. This case is a reminder that family is not a shield against accountability. And just like that, it was over. But the closure didn't come from the ruling. It came 2 weeks later. I visited the house, alone. I hadn't been back since my dad died. The air smelled the same, that faint mix of old carpet and pine cleaner. The photo frames were still up on the wall. Only now I noticed how carefully they'd been curated. Only the boys, only the real family. I walked into the den, sat on the couch where my dad and I used to watch movies, and cried. Not out of grief, out of release. Because for the first time in my life, I felt real, validated, heard. They couldn't take that from me anymore. I left the house untouched, let them buy out my share. I didn't want the walls. I just wanted the truth. And I got it. In court, in writing, in history. They can't rewrite me out again. Months passed. I blocked every number, every email. My wedding photos now sit framed in my house, surrounded by people who actually chose me. Elias and I planted a cherry tree in our backyard this spring. Every time I look at it, I think of growth, of quiet power, of choosing peace without forgetting what it took to earn it. I heard Cole moved away. Landon and Drew barely speak to each other anymore. My stepmother's name no longer shows up on any of the family charities she used to run. Their legacy is stained. Because I told the truth. And the truth stuck. They tried to erase me. Now their names are in the system forever, tied to what they did to me. What I learned is this. You don't have to scream to be powerful. You just have to stop letting silence protect the people who hurt you. And sometimes the real revenge isn't yelling. It's being heard. Have you ever been treated like you didn't matter? By the very people who were supposed to protect you? Tell me below. I read every story, and if you've ever felt invisible, I see you. If you found this story powerful, make sure to subscribe for more real-life Reddit stories like this. You're not alone.